Again, this is Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame YouTube channel. We have 1,257 subscribers. I want to thank all those people today. And I want to thank our sponsors today, Wave One Media, obviously. And I want to thank Roof It Forward. I would like to thank Wise Financial and Sycamore Printing and the pizza, Genato's Pizza down the road, and for coming in and sponsors today. Today's my special guest, and I have Fred Berns, who is from Indianapolis, Indiana. I think he was born in Chicago. Is that true?
True.
He's born in Chicago. He came here in Indianapolis, in Indiana. What year?
1966.
1966. And when did you start promoting fights here in Indiana?
1968, the night before the 500.
1968, the night before the 500, he's been promoting. He's did over 500 shows all over the world, correct?
Right.
And how many ESPN shows?
36.
36 ESPN shows. How many ABCs, CBS, NBCs, all that?
ABC, I think about 4. ABC's Wide World of Sports.
Okay.
I did CBS, probably another 4. USA Network, 3 or 4, and some independent networks.
As well.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you did pay-per-view fights here in Indianapolis, Indiana, correct?
Well, I did them all over. I did them in several states, the pay-per-view, Ohio, and where else? Wisconsin and
I remember
Illinois.
I remember in 1981, I went to see this fight called Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns at the Market Square Arena. And I think you was doing the show. You were doing the show. It was unbelievable. So, Fred, you did over how many years as promoting shows?
Probably, I've lost track because I don't remember when I retired.
Yeah.
But probably about close to 40.
40 years of promoting boxing shows.
Yeah.
And then you did over 500 shows.
Right.
And you brought in World Championship Boxing here to Indianapolis, Indiana, correct?
Right.
Yeah, and it wasn't here. Well, we had the Floyd Patterson title fight here.
Yeah, Brian London
and Floyd Patterson fight.
Yeah, and that was here in when was that? In the 50s?
Yeah, it's got to be the 50 because he was 52. He won the gold, and then in 56 he's heavyweight world champion. So probably 58.
Yeah, and then there was nothing here.
Yeah, and you also brought Tracy Harris Patterson, his son, and you brought Floyd Patterson here.
Yeah,
and as a celebrity guest, and Tracy Harrison Patterson fought here on the card. I think it was 5/16/1989.
Wow.
That's hard to believe.
That long ago?
Yeah, he fought here.
Wow.
Tracy Patterson. So obviously, I think at some point we have to bring in Tracy Harris Patterson, and we have to bring in his dad as the deceased and put him in the boxing hall thing. I mean, come on, everybody goes, you're grasping the stars. We're keeping the business alive. All right, so Fred, tell us about your very first boxing show here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and your strategy, because I think this is pretty funny. Go ahead.
Well, when I lived in Chicago, every Thursday night I'd go to Marigold Gardens. They had boxing shows every week.
Okay.
And I became a boxing fan there. I paid my $4, got in, saw 4-round fighters like Ernie Terrell.
Ernie Terrell ended up being heavyweight champion?
Yeah, but he was only a 4-round fighter
at that time.
And since has died of old age.
Yeah.
And so, it's a while ago. But anyway, when I moved here, there had been no boxing. So occasionally I would drive up to Chicago. It's a long way to go. 4 hours each way to go see the boxing. And I had met a guy here, Howard Layden, who owned a couple of the Penn liquor stores.
Okay.
And he said, look, we could do boxing here.
Okay.
And I figured, why not? And he decided that the night before the race would be the best when there were 200,000 or 300,000 out-of-towners here. He said there ought to be 10,000 boxing fans. Well, I didn't know.
You didn't know any different?
No, nor did he.
Yeah.
And so we proceeded with that show. We had Doyle Baird was in the main event.
Okay.
And Ellen Thomas. And then we had some local fighters that were difficult to find. Yeah, because they're
so good fighters.
Yeah,
nobody wants to fight them.
Yeah, and a lot of them were just older opponents.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we rented the Coliseum, and we prepared for 7,000 people. And of course, something we overlooked was at race time, there are no hotel rooms.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we've got these fighters coming in, Manny Quinney from Buffalo, New York, and nowhere to put them.
Yes.
And so we found a kind of a beat-up old hotel out on East 38th Street at Emerson. It's a fireproof hotel. And the fighters saying, we're staying at the hotel Fireproof. And so anyway, we proceeded with the show. I'm not sure, but there were so few people there, it looked like the cleaning crew.
So you didn't have anybody at your first fight, and you was in the gutter from there, and it was hard to dig yourself out, correct?
Oh, yeah. It was a financial disaster.
Yeah, I got you. But, you stayed with it. You were resilient, and you kept coming back, and you kept promoting shows. And here's what I'll say about you, Fred. You did shows. When we sat around and thought about the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame with me, you, George DeFavis, Keith Boggs, and all of us were sitting around thinking about the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame. I had the facilities to do it at the Holiday Inn there in Carmel. So, that's why I went ahead and did it. But we wanted to make sure when we did the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame that we put the right people in right off the bat. And right off the bat, Tony Zale was a world champion. He's one of the greatest fighters. He's in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Can't get any higher. And then we got Marvin Johnson, correct?
Right.
3-time light heavyweight champion of the world, 1978, 1979, 1986. You can't get any better than that. He was a 72 bronze medal winner, 43-6, 35 knockouts. And here's how good Marvin was. In 1972, he wins the bronze at 165. In 1972, Matt Parloff, who won the gold at 178. And then years later, boy wonder, Russell Peltz gets him a shot at the title in Milan, Italy, and he goes over and knocks Matt Parloff for the WBA and the WBC titles. And I'm going to tell you how old the WBA and WBC is. They're the oldest titles in the world.
Sure.
1921, WBA, WBC's been around since 1963. Those belts are the most popular, and Marvin Johnson won them. So we put Marvin in, yourself, Fred Berns, George DeFavis, who did all kinds of amateur work here for how many years?
60, 70.
Yeah, 60, 70 years. And we put the right people in, and I think we put the right pieces in. First year, absolutely, for the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame, especially with you, and your wife was there, and then your daughter was there. And then your grandson, and remember, was your grandson here?
Granddaughter,
yeah, all of them.
They came in from California.
Yep, California. Now we're going to talk about right now your world title fights. Okay, so you did world title fights here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and you did them at Market Square Arena, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, and you brought in, was it Gene Mimby versus Marvin Johnson? Maybe. Amoebi fought Marvin. And then you also did the Matthew Franklin or Matthew Saad Muhammad versus Marvin.
Right.
Here.
And we did several of them. We did quite a few fights at Market Square Arena. They were very helpful.
They put us on the map, you put us back on the map. We did do the London fight here, but you actually brought the World Championship fights back here. And then, in 1984, you put in Marvin Johnson versus Prince Charles Williams, and both of them become light heavyweight. They're both light heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah, and that was at Tyndall Armory.
Tyndall Armory, and we used to do shows all over here in Indiana. We did a show at the Columbia Club down here. You remember that?
Oh yeah, I did.
It was so hard to do the show at the Columbia Club, Wyatt, that they had to take all the to get to the elevators to put the ring up downtown. Remember how hard that was?
Bring it up a piece at a time.
Oh, yeah. You know, here's the deal. I signed with Fred Berns in 1989, okay? Fred knew I was a ticket seller, and here's the deal. Fred was such a big star when I was a young kid. There's no lie. He was commentating the Golden Gloves, and I was fighting Tyrone Armstead from Evansville, Indiana.
He was a tough
guy, very tough guy. He had a twin brother, too, Tyrese, and they were both good, tough fighters, and I ended up winning decision over him, and then I signed with some guy named Fred Berns, and Fred Berns knew that I was bringing redneck fans from Greensburg, Indiana, and it was funny. I said, Fred, I want to do a show in Greensburg, Indiana. He said, can you sell tickets? I said, can I sell tickets? And we went to Greensburg, Indiana, and we did the first show there in 1990 at the fairgrounds. Remember that show?
Yeah.
We took a show to Greensburg, Indiana. I stayed there all week and promoted it. I worked out there, trained there, and then the night of the fight, it looked like it was going to rain. You remember that?
No.
Yeah, and we had the ring, and we put it in the middle, and we bought the extra seats from Columbus, Indiana, and we did a show in Greensburg, Indiana, and we did over a $12,000 live gate. In those days, with $15 and $20 at best.
No, there was no $20.
Now, there's not at all no $20. And we did 9 boxing shows in Greensburg, Indiana. And that was all Fred Berns. I mean, if it wasn't for, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be at the level I am right now with the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame if it wasn't for Fred Berns. And if it wasn't for Fred Berns. And I followed a lot of his leads, and I learned a lot the best I could with him and Boy Wonder and how they did certain things. And there's some things that you'll change and tweak it the way you like, and then you'll let the guy do his own thing. What would you say was your greatest moment with Marvin Johnson here in Indianapolis, Indiana?
Well, I think playing the Rocky theme when Marvin came out.
Oh, Rocky theme.
We brought the joint down. I thought the building was going to collapse.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting.
The way they played it, I asked them, this is 40 minutes before the show.
Yeah.
And I said, do you have a copy of that? And they said, of course. And the way they brought it up.
Hello, ladies.
On the sound. And the building
was crazy.
Shaking.
Yeah.
And it was just a great show. There was something good for everyone, something bad for everyone. The fellow that did my ring announcing was a bridge partner of my wife's. He said he still gets calls.
I know. And Fred, here's the thing with Fred, Wyatt. Fred would get us fights overseas. We'd overseas. We had to go to Chicago to get our passport, and Fred would get us fights overseas, and we made more money overseas than we did ever here. I mean, some of the money we got.
You'd get more money. The fighter would get more money than we could gross here.
Yeah, and and then we have good times. And I remember this one trip. I always wanted to tell this story. And me and you, we went to, was it Milan, Italy?
Milan, Italy.
So I'm there with Fred Berns in Milan, Italy. This is a story.
The menu of the world. Milan, yes. Italy, the central food capital. And I've got Craig Houck with me, who eats nothing.
Cheeseburgers. I found the first redneck place and went and got a cheeseburger and fries. And he said, the food over here is phenomenal. I said, that's terrible. I said, what is that? He said, that's an eggplant. He said, Chase, it tasted, it's very good. And I put that in my mouth. I was like, this is terrible food over here. But we go over to Milan, Italy. Okay. So we're trying to get back to the hotel, not the hotel, to the airport. And on the way to the airport, so we have all our stuff in the back of this cab, and this guy we're supposed to get free rides back and forth, right?
It was the promoter.
Yeah, the promoter. We're supposed to get free transportation. But the guy wants $100. And as soon as he opens, me and Fred are we're in Italy, right? We're in Italy. And here's the thing. So as soon as the guy opens up the trunk, I pulled my suitcase out of there as quick as I could, and I had it because I knew I was going to get out of there. And Fred went to go get his, and he shut the thing down on it. And he didn't have no money, and he asked me for $100. He said, "Hey, can you give me $100 so I can get my stuff?"
It didn't go that fast. We were there I thought we were going to start a riot.
Oh, that was funny. And the best thing about it was when you was over there, you would collect those, what was the oils or something like that?
Yeah, vinegar, special Italian vinegars and Italian olive oils. And I had my suitcase, and I even found a handmade Italian tie, a silk boxing tie.
Yeah, he did.
And I had all that in my suitcase. And normally when I travel, I'd let them have it for the $100.
Yeah,
keep it.
But this time we needed the $100.
Yeah, and so Craig and the promoter, Italy, no matter what you say, beautiful country. Very nice. It's a third world country. And
we want to get back. We don't want to be over there like the girl, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We want to get back. I didn't take no pot with me.
Yeah. And
we want to get back.
And this guy, he slammed the door on me, and what it was, he wouldn't show how either. A policeman came over because we were making so much noise. And he said, "Well, let me see the suitcases." Well, when the guy raised the door, Craig grabbed his and did the 40-yard dash in 2.6.
Well, here's the thing. I knew I could take that guy. And I could take that guy. There's no doubt. He's in his 40s. I'm in my 30s or 20s. I could take that guy. But Fred, he went to grab his suitcase, and they got to shut the thing on him. But here's the funniest of the story. We get back to Indianapolis, Indiana, and we get his suitcase out, and we open it up, and all that oil that he'd bought and everything, it busted in his suitcase, and it ruined his tie and his jeans and his pants and everything.
And his sport jacket. So I got home with nothing.
Oh, man.
And Houck lost $100 in the deal.
Yeah, I didn't get my $100 back for that trip. But, it was one of our great trips. Fred did get all kinds of fights for me. We went to the MGM Grand in Las Vegas in 1994.
The premiere show.
Yeah, we opened the show. And here's how the life comes full circle, okay? On that card that night was, so the main event was Julio Cesar Chavez versus Frankie Randall. And Frankie Randall's cornerman trainer was Aaron Snowell. And I saw him at the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. All right. And then Felix Trinidad versus Hector Camacho. And then Houck versus Meldrick Taylor, who's a 1984 gold medal winner, 140 pound world champion, like WBA and WBC. There ain't no bull crap on it. Those are the best belts. All right. So I have to go in there and fight those guys. All right. But here's the deal. Years later, 2000, whatever, I put in Felix Trinidad. So next Thursday, I fly to Puerto Rico to put Felix Trinidad in as the celebrity/legend Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame. And that comes full circle, Fred. And I put in Don King and his son Carl King this year into the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame. I think the celebrity guests should be people that everybody knows.
Yeah, well, Don, he did some shows here. He gave us some TV dates. One down at the casino there on the Ohio River. And we did good. I never had a problem with King. People say, well, Don King was this and that. I don't know what he was. All I know is, I wasn't his competitor. I was his vendor.
Yeah.
And he didn't see me as a threat and trying to take anything away. And he treated me like the Prince of Wales.
We made the most money with King.
Yes.
He treated us. We got more fighters on his card.
Yes.
He did all kinds of great things for us personally. That's right. All I can explain.
He had the premier event when they first opened up the MGM. We had 5 Indiana fighters
On the card.
on that card. Do you know how many fighters in Vegas
Was
and
begging to get on that card.
Were begging.
Yeah.
From all over the world, they wanted to get on that card because it was the first ever. Indiana, King took care of us.
Here's the thing with Don King. There was a guy, some guy named Julio Cesar Chavez, and they wanted hi guys. They wanted an opponent for him, so they called Craig Houck from Indiana Boxing, and he negotiates everything, and next thing you know, 1995 at the United Center in Chicago, right? Craig Houck versus Julio Cesar Chavez, and it was up on lights and everything like that, and I'm looking at Fred like, what did we do? And we're like, we don't know what we did. Let's just keep going. You know what I'm saying? We'll go on in there. And it was funny because when I was going to the ring, this is no lie, I'm going to the ring, and I passed Mr. T, and I passed Michael Jordan. I'm like, man, did I just see that? And that's the stuff that Fred would pull out. He could pull out that type of Bob Arum. He had a great relationship with Bob Arum with Top Rank.
That's right.
Yeah, Bob Arum. He would do shows here. He would do all kinds of things for here. You know, and I want to give a shout out to Pete Susans. Pete Susans did a lot of good things here in Indiana. He was a really good matchmaker, in my opinion. He was a great matchmaker, and I think that's why he's at Top Rank. And he had to grow and go to do his own thing and stuff. But he did a tremendous job, him and Sean Givens, with Top Rank Boxing. I got to give those guys nothing but credit.
Yes.
Yeah.
They Sean was a relentless worker. Extreme driven. He didn't get tired.
Yeah.
When you were doing something.
Yeah.
He was there. Pete was a little lower key, but he had, at a time before computers and all the rest, Pete had that in his head.
Yes.
Thousands and thousands of fighters and results.
Yeah, he could get that. He could get those results out.
And he was
good matchmaker.
Yeah, he was priceless.
Yeah, he was good stuff.
But a side story to the United Center in Chicago, which was the Chicago Stadium previous to that.
Because we got sued.
The promoter lost a lot of money.
Yes, this is a true story.
He didn't know what he was doing. And, you start doing, Julio Cesar Chavez and things like that. Don
King's got to get paid.
Yeah, then Don King got to get paid. And because King had the contracts.
Yes.
And this guy just
didn't know what he was doing.
No. And anyway, so he should have stopped. But he didn't. He went on with it.
Putting all kinds of businesses on.
And after he
lost
hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So he decided he was going to get that money back by suing Craig Houck.
Me. And he sued me. And I thought it was bullcrap at first, and I didn't even want to go. And Fred's like, no, we got to go to Chicago. We have to. Because, this is like government. What was it? It was like
this. It was like the Wizard of Oz.
So we get sued.
And Craig, we walk up to this intimidating judge in this intimidating courtroom.
Oh, yeah, this was funny.
And the judge looks down at Craig and he says, young man, you're being sued for $7 million.
Something outrageous.
Yeah, and do you know that? And Craig says, yes. And he said, did you bring it with you?
Yeah, it was funny. I stand up and pull out my pockets, and I said, well, I think I got a couple dollars on me.
And the judge went from this somber, dour-looking guy to laughing.
Yeah, he did laugh.
And he turned to the jerks that were suing
us.
Yeah, and he said, this is such a ridiculous case.
Yeah, it was.
He said, if you proceed with it around my court, because I'm throwing it out, but if you proceed with it, I'm going to help this young man.
Craig Howe, get a lawyer.
Get a lawyer and defend against you.
It was hilarious.
Yeah,
it was funny. It was kind of intimidating. We're like, me and Fred are over here, and they got all them big shot lawyers over there. And they're trying to intimidate us and stuff. And hell, I'm a fighter. Like, I'm not scared of these guys. These are privileged guys. I'll knock these guys out of quick, So I get over there, and they go, "Are you ready?" I said, "Yeah, we're ready." I said, "Wait 1 second." I went over there. I said, "Hey, look, and you pissant big shots. You guys ready? Because we're ready over here." And they looked at me with their eyes, and Fred just started laughing. We went into that court, and that judge had my back I didn't know it, but the judge had my back. They threw the case out.
Which was great.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And then in 1996, we get a call to fight some guy named Hector Camacho or something like that.
Yeah, Madison
Square Garden. 18,331 people.
Yeah. Rioting.
That was the Riddick Bowe Andrew Galata riot.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
I remember that too. So we're coming to the ring. This is no lie, Wyatt. We're coming to the ring. And you got to remember, they put a curtain up between us. In my camp's over here, and I'm hitting the mitts, and Camacho's camp's over there. And his famous saying is, "What time is it? Macho time." And he's hitting these mitts. "What time is it? Macho time." And he starts hitting these mitts. "What time is it? Macho time." And he hit these mitts, and I'm like, that shit's gonna hurt. Which I did get 11 stitches in my mouth that night. And I got 11 stitches. He hit me with an uppercut. I gave him 11 stitches to stop the fight on me, but. We're on the way to the ring, Wyatt, and me and Fred, and next thing you know, we're on the way to the ring, and they're playing, "I get knocked down, but I get up again." And I look over at Fred. I said, "Hey, Fred, what time is it?" He looks at his watch, dead serious, and goes, 8:38. And then the funny thing, he's not going to hurt us.
Well, that was another one. It was more fun making the match.
Oh, yeah.
Then you get there and you think, wait a minute.
Wait a second. We're a little bit over our head.
Yeah. And then the worst part was, not only is everyone in the building rioting, getting beat up.
George Foreman.
George Foreman, they stayed away from.
George Foreman stood up, and the announcer, they were going to whip his ass.
Yeah.
Remember him?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Don't do it, boys. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. I'm George Foreman. Don't do it."
Yeah, put that chair down,
Put that chair down. Yeah, I wouldn't do that, son. I wouldn't do that, son.
And they did.
They did. And George Foreman won their respect that night, because George Foreman was a commentator, and he was with, I can't think of the guy's
tall guy. He was a foot taller than George, was scared to death.
Yeah, he was. He was getting ready to get whipped big time.
He was holding George like a 6-year-old around his leg.
And then we
sneak out of the building.
We sneak out of the building, and on the way back, I get stopped by the cops who come running way too late. Remember that?
Yeah.
And they're like, "What? Are you in the riot?" I'm like, "Look, dude, I was the co-main event. I got my ass kicked. What do you?"
They wanted to lock him up because they thought he was one of the rioters. Yeah, I was in a riot.
Yeah. We had a great time.
All by myself. And we had the one thing in the 35 years that I was in boxing, we had a good time. We had a lot of fun.
Absolutely blast. And, great fights, great time, good stuff.
Yeah.
1999, Israel. Remember that?
In Israel?
We go to Israel and fighting for the IBC world title, and we're over in Israel, and we had a blast over there. There's Nazareth. We went and seen all the Jesus stories. We went and did all the stuff. And Fred, he ate good, and I ate terrible.
Yeah, that was one thing. If you went to another country with Craig Howe, he was going to starve because he wouldn't eat.
Oh, yeah, it was terrible.
Then he found a guy, I don't remember what country, might have even been Israel, an Arab guy that had worked in New York for a few years. And he had a little shack. And Craig talked him into making a hamburger.
I did talk him into making him a hamburger. He did make me a hamburger. It was pretty good.
And but other than that, and they put us, all the fighters on the card, were staying at a kibbutz, and Craig and I were staying at the finest. It was an old monastery, and the food was, for Arab. It was.
Do you remember when we got picked up in a limousine by the Klitschko boys?
Yeah,
Vladimir and
that was in Germany.
That was in Germany. Vladimir and Vitaly come in. We're fighting for Universal Promotions, and Vladimir and Vitaly are in the limo. And me and that was before we had social media, and I could take my camera and I could take stuff like that and get those great pictures and stuff like that I'm doing now. That was before that time. I could have really blew it up back in the day when we was with Camacho and Chavez and Mel Taylor and all that stuff. I could have destroyed social media then, but there wasn't around back then. It is now. So that's where I try to explain to people. And Fred, you got to remember, Fred, he made all this stuff happen.
Well, let's. He's jumping from story to story because there's so many of them.
Well, yeah, they go on a long time.
Yeah,
so.
But the Camacho boys, they were in New York on one of their first trips to this country. And by the way, Vladimir is the mayor of Kiev in the Ukraine. And now
he is.
And both boys were PhDs.
Great athletes.
Great athletes.
Great phenomenal Olympians. Fighters.
And
gold
anyway,
medal winners. Hello.
And anyway, they got a ride in a Lincoln limousine. Well, any kind of a car that's been in New York for more than 24 hours is usually a mess. And they bought the Lincoln that they were riding in New York and shipped it back to
the Yukon.
First to Germany.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what they hadn't thought of, a Lincoln limo, especially a stretch, wouldn't fit into the driveways in the hotels. they couldn't go anywhere with it, and it was not in the best shape. They got ripped off on it, but they just thought it was the greatest. And we were driving around with the Klitschko boys.
So what story are we going to jump to next?
Yeah, you just jumped over the best part of the show in your hometown,
Greensburg.
It was raining, and the ring started sinking into the mud.
Yes,
and the floorboards are coming up. And
it was 1990, Greensburg, Indiana.
Is that when that was?
In June. And I can remember fighting like Ted Spencer from Oklahoma or somewhere like that. I'm not sure where he was, Oklahoma, Arkansas. So as I'm fighting, I can hear you can hear him doing the work. I'm like, this is the best redneck party I've ever seen.
Here we go. I run to the side of the ring and I said, Craig, keep the fight on this side of the ring.
Oh, yeah.
Before it tips over in the mud.
Yeah, it was pretty good stuff.
And in another show we were bringing the ring out to Greensburg, and the U-Haul truck broke down. And now we don't have enough time to get another U-Haul. We're going nuts because then you got to unload this 2.5-ton truck, reload it, take it and set up a ring, which takes hours. And then finally someone came up with the idea. Said, well, let's get a tow truck, which was great. Yeah. So we towed the truck and the ring to Greensburg,
Indiana.
And, people are coming in and we're setting up a ring. And,
well, we still got it all off.
Yeah.
The Greensburg people, Greensburg, Indiana, I want to give them a shout out today. They've
absolutely
and
never lost a nickel in Greensburg.
No, it wasn't. I'm going to be honest. If it wasn't for Greensburg, Indiana, and then my Greensburg, Indiana, supported me all those years. I don't know if I'd ever got to where I got. But so I'm going to tell you the best story was in 2003. Fred calls me up and said, hey, man, Camacho's guy fell out. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, his opponent fell out. We got to fight for you. Do you want to fight a rematch with Camacho? I said, how much does it pay? And he says, well, it pays this much a year. I said, hell yes, I'm in. So we go to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You remember that trip?
Yeah. It was an Indian reservation.
It's an Indian reservation, and they're doing a fight at the casino in Fort Lauderdale, remember?
Yeah,
Macho time at the creek.
Yeah. Oh, is that what
And they had us on TV and everything. We come into the ring and this, that, and the other.
That was another one where I thought, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah, and it's funny. It's funny because, Fred, he's up there, oh, they can't hurt us. He goes, go out there and kill him. That's his favorite line. So Camacho, he's beating the shit out of me for about 30, 35, probably 2 minutes right in a row. All right. But I kind of slipped my hands up and I seen him drop his hands. And when he dropped his hands, I threw a right hand and a left hook and I knocked him on the floor. And Fred turns around and says, what's going on?
Camacho had never been on the floor.
Yeah. And I get him on the floor and I'm running around the corner and Fred's looking at me. We're talking about it the whole time. And then,
this is going to hurt.
Yeah, he got up and he was not happy. I had so I never had a legend on the ground before. So instead of keeping my punches really quick and sharp like I should have, I'd never been to that level. So I looped him and I threw him over the top. Well, Camacho's too savvy and too experienced for that, and he got through that. And then later he beat me up, So, but we had some great times. We had some great trips. We've been in, seen it. Fred's did top rank boxing. He did ABC. He did CBS. He did NBC. First class of 2018 Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame. Fred, you can't get any better than that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it took a long time to get there.
Yeah, of course. And we don't know that we're going to create the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame. And I'll tell you where I kind of got the idea. Fred used to do a dinner on once a year. And he started this tell him the lunch that you started. How many years ago did you start the lunch?
Oh, God, it has to be 12 maybe.
No, it's more longer than that.
Is that?
The lunch where all the guys get together.
That's 30 years.
That's what I'm saying. We've been having lunch every Thursday year, Wyatt, on Thursday. I used to go there when I was fighting, and then they did it before I even knew it. So I would go there, and that's our Thursday lunch.
And we're still doing it.
We're still doing it. We still talk about boxing. We still there, and we talk about families and different stuff like that. And then Fred used to do a party once a year, and he'd get up there and speak a little bit. And I was like, look, we gotta. So I bought the rights to the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame. I said, we got to start writing history. We got to do it. And I had the facility to do it. And that's how we got the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame go. Just a bunch of guys of us sitting around thinking we need to do this. And I had the facilities and they said, let's go. And that's how it got started.
Well, it was a long road and it's a hard road. Now Craig is like an advisor at almost every Hall of Fame in the country. They come to him for information and help, and he goes to them for information and help. And if you haven't been to one of the Boxing Hall of Fame banquets and inductions, you really should, whether you were involved in boxing or not. You're missing a good time. And there's some very famous people in boxing that come in just to see this.
Yeah.
This year, he did
Antonio Tarver.
The hotel is what
Embassy Suites. We did a show at the Embassy Suites
in Plainfield.
In Plainfield, Indiana. It was right off by the airport.
And I thought to myself, what the heck is he doing? You don't go out there. You go. Because
they said, don't go there.
My advice is only 70 years old.
and we went to Plainfield. And the very first thing they did from 2 hours straight was we had happy hour. And these guys started looking at me. And they were bringing out drinks to all these guys. And then the next thing you know, my banquet room was off the chart.
Yeah. And the food was good.
The food was off the chain.
They did just a super job.
Phenomenal job at the MC Suites.
And you see, if you're any kind of a fan, Michael Spinks.
Michael Spinks comes in every year.
Michael Nuns occasionally.
Yeah, Antonio Tarver. Russell Boy Wonder, J. Russell Peltz.
Peltz is...
Then he's in every Hall of Fame there is.
Yeah, he's probably the best matchmaker in boxing history.
Probably is.
And He's brilliant. He was drawing 8,000 people in Philadelphia when I was praying for 200.
Yeah, and then Carl King. Carl King comes right in. He loves Indiana. And then the Tubbs brothers, Tony Tubbs, Nate Tubbs.
At every function.
Larry Donald, heavyweight, world challenger who lost to Riddick Bowe, who beat Evander Holyfield late in his career. Larry Donald's our next celebrity and guest, and so is David Tua. We got to bring in them stars. So we used to do the Indiana Black Expo here. Remember that?
Yeah.
It used to be a big event. And we'd bring in big superstars like Floyd Mayweather Jr. He fought here. His daddy brought him here, Floyd Sr. And then some guy named Muhammad Ali. He did the Indiana Black Expo. So this coming year, we have Muhammad Ali coming in. I talked to his wife. She's 72, his very first wife with his 4 kids. Now, out of those 4 kids is his son. That is one of his nephews that's fighting right now. And one of his nephews fighting right now is the one is fighting for the Ali legacy to just keep going. Walsh is his name, Walsh. And he's a good fighter, and he does a great job. And, the boxing world. And here's what I want to say about Jake Paul. Have you ever heard of Jake Paul?
No.
Well, here's the thing with Jake Paul. If you don't, you get that 20 pounds here, and you got 20 pounds there, and this, you got to throw yourself in the hat for the boxing, okay? Mm-hmm. And then you have a division that you're in, and then you can pick who you want to fight and who you don't want to fight, but he can't. I don't think he can make the money that he's trying to get because he has the superstars. But you have to throw yourself into the hat, and then get into the boxing. But that's why every one of his fights keep falling out. You know what I'm saying? Because the Rock men and they're 40 pounds heavier. I mean, Mayweather was so much lighter. He has to get a weight and do it that way, if in my way, for him to be successful. But I mean, he's going to be successful any way he wants because he's a big YouTube star and he does a lot of great things. So, Fred, what would you like to say to your fans today?
My fans are all dead. But I've been around a long time in the boxing world. At one time, I knew everyone there was to know.
Floyd Patterson.
The whole world. In the world of boxing.
Bob Arum, Don King.
Yeah. And
Lou Duva.
And our fighters that kept us in business.
We would go into Fred's office and his phone would ring and it'd be Bob Arum on the phone. Yeah. And next thing you know, he'd have George Foreman in his office. Next thing you know, he's got Floyd Patterson in his office. These are heavyweight champions. Like, these are legit legends. We're just walking in Fred's like in awe. Like, man, I got to go in his office and see who he talks to today. Don King's on the phone with him. I'm like, oh my God.
Very entertaining.
Yeah, what great times they were.
During the Mike Tyson trial, the reporters from all over the country were coming to our office and asking us, what do we know about what's going on? And, of course, we knew nothing. So somebody got the bright idea on a blackboard of, like, writing DK 2 p.m. like a code.
Yeah, 2 p.m.
And pretty soon we had 30 fighters making Don King...
Yes.
Notes. And we had a bigger crowd sitting in front of the office in rental cars than I had at half of my shows.
Yeah, it was good stuff, man. It was great stuff.
And we knew nothing.
Oh, yeah. So here's the funniest trick I ever pulled on Fred. All right, so we'd be overseas, and I think we were in Denmark, Copenhagen. And there was a hooker that would walk on the street there every day.
That was Italy.
It was Italy. All right, I apologize. Well, we're in Italy, and there was a hooker that was walking there every day. And me and Fred we'd be like, what in the world's going on? Why is she just, and we walk over there, and I'd say, look, you're right.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, she was gorgeous. Yeah. So here's what I did. I said, okay, as a practical joke, I said, you know what? I said, Fred, after the fight, I'm gonna go get that girl. And I'm gonna go get that girl. He goes, really? I said, yes. So here, after the fights was over with and everything, I walked out the next day, and Fred's looking at me. He's like, so how was she? How was she? And I was like, well, her wiener was bigger than mine. And he started laughing. That's been our best joke we've ever pulled.
That's one of my all-time favorites. And by the time we pull it off in a crowd, that story gets long
overdue
and involved.
Yeah. But Fred, you have been the greatest promoter in Indiana.
On this street.
No, you have been the greatest promoter in Indiana. You've had world championship fights here. Nobody's been able to match it. Everybody goes out there and they say, well, we did this and we did that. Well, you canceled 6 shows. You canceled 7 shows. Fred didn't do that. It's about consistency. It's about doing it every day. It's about being relentless and the driven and the drive. And they got to stay with the grind, right, Fred?
Yeah.
And it's not easy.
You got to want to really do it. It's like what is this lady going to take your picture?
Well, she was at first, and then she switched to her phone ring. But we've had a great day today. I'd like to thank Wave One Media for the time and energy for today. I want to thank Fred Berns to be my celebrity guest today, and it's Fred. And here's one thing: it used to be called F and F, and we didn't know for the longest time what F and F meant. Well, there's Fred, and then there's Freda Berns. And that's his wife, and it was F and F Berns. So that's why I didn't know it was Fred Berns. But it took me a while to figure that out, F and F Berns.
And she was very, very tolerant of my disease. And because boxing, it's like golf. All these guys think they're going to become pros and make a living. No, they're not.
Yeah, but they're going to be addicted to the game.
Yes.
And that's what's going to happen.
And they're going to ruin their life with it.
Just like we did.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Craig is one of the few fighters that has a steady job.
Yeah.
Most of them, boxing turns them into a bum.
Yeah, they don't want to work no more. Here's the deal. I have enough money to travel and do the whole 9 yards, and there's been a death in the family, and I've got some money. But I get up, and I know exactly where I'm going. I know exactly where I'm going to be. I have my schedule written out, and I'm ready to go, and I'm chasing greatness. I don't care about the next party. I don't care who's having the next beer party or the next food party down the road. I don't care about a local high school gathering or any of that. I know exactly where I'm going. And next Thursday, I fly out to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and get Felix Trinidad, Jr. and Senior, the Celebrity/Legend Hall of Fame Award. And then the following weekend, I fly to Vegas with Rich Murat, who runs the Vegas Hall of Fame, and I hang out with a guy named Floyd Mayweather Jr. or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And then Michael Spinks and Larry Holmes. And the hits just don't come. It's like walking in, seeing it's one big celebrity fest. It's almost like Fred talking about his daughter, now related to, what's his name?
Robert Downey
Jr. And he's talking about the boat and the $1 million and probably the $7 billion he's worth, and they're going from here to there and doing this event and that event. And you've been to Robert Downey Jr.'s house, right?
Yes, many times.
Yeah,
for dinner.
Yeah, and what a great guy he is.
Very good, very nice guy, and it's just a lot of fun to have him in the family.
Yeah.
And one time he was doing a premiere here.
And he came here?
And he did a premiere for his...
it was a lawyer. It was
the lawyer.
He was a lawyer in the show. His dad was a lawyer or something like that.
And he...
opened a premiere here in Indiana.
And then at the showing, he said to the crowd, he says, I have more relatives in Indiana than I do in California.
Yeah, and here's the best one was. They went, hey, how we doing today, champ? So he went to go shake Robert Downey Jr.'s hand, right? So he shook his hand. His wife shook his hand. The daughter shook his hand. So the bum Scott Romer tries to shake his hand, and his hand, he won't shake his hand. It was funny as he had his hand right out there. Like
he jumped over us.
Yeah. Try to get his handshake with him. That was pretty cool. That was
good. So it's been an exciting life that boxing has made for us, like Craig is now. He knows, I know no one left in boxing. I'm 83 years old, and I was the youngest. Well, there is no more.
No.
And
the Mohicans are pretty much gone.
But the new generation, he knows everybody.
Yep.
And that's
half the battle.
That's half the battle. And this is worldwide.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're the NBA champ of the world. You're not the NBA champ. You're not the champ of the world. In boxing, you're the champ of the world.
Because we go to every country in the world.
And
NBA, you don't play Spain for the championship.
No.
You don't play
Croatia.
You don't Croatia. I mean, probably they'll stomp them anyway, but they don't play those groups,
Yeah.
right?
But still, no.
When you're boxing, you become world champion.
And one of Craig's assistants is the 1972
Gold medal winner, Sugar Ray Seals.
gold medal Olympic, the only gold medalist we had on that team
1972.
in 72.
Absolutely.
And, that's not a bad assistant.
No, and it's
to
not
have.
a bad door prize when you come walking in with the 72 gold medal winner. You'll get some respect out of that.
That's right.
Great people. Then they should look. Marvin Johnson, Sugar Ray Seals was my first podcast ever. And, we've been going with it ever since. And my goal wasn't to make money, but I'm getting close to YouTube making money. They're doing commercials on my things now, but that's okay. When you chase your passion, you pace your drive, and, this is a hobby for me and Fred. This has been a hobby for us it becomes easy.
Well, you've been in it a long time now. What,
Yeah.
30 years?
I started pro in 1989, and I was amateur from 83 to 88, and then Fred Berns signed me in 89.
Yeah, see, so that's 30 years, 33 years.
You could spend 3 decades in this game, you'll know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, but you gotta do it. There's no, you can't enroll at IUPUI and take a course on being a boxing
Well, there's no grade.
savant.
Here's what I try to tell them. There's no grade point average for being self-sufficient. There is no grade point average for it. Either you can be or you can't. And, that's where I've learned to be self-sufficient and get stuff done what I need to do. And, boxing's been a great lesson for me. And, Fred Berns has been, a mentor towards me. And, today we're here and we wanted to say thanks to everybody. And Fred, I'm going to give you the last few words here. What do you want to say?
Well, I want to know, is the sound from this broadcast going out into the street? Because people seem to be looking into the studio here.
It's going out there, yeah.
See there? We go.
Thank you.
And how far does it travel out there, Wyatt?
You could hear us from that sidewalk over there.
Oh, wow. On the other side.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Terrific.
Yeah, we're here doing our podcast.
I'm impressed. They're waving, and I thought to myself,
yeah.
anybody I know is at the cemetery.
You know what? No, but here's what we'll do. Remember when Marvin was here, there was a few standing out there to get his autograph?
That's great.
Marvin Johnson, yeah. And Sugar Ray Seals.
They must have been old.
Well, no, but they were standing out there where they knew who Marvin was. And of course, when you announced him, then, we used to do that.
Well, no 25-year-old boxing fan knows who Marvin is.
That's true.
But,
It's
been nice. Thank you for having me.
Fred, I want to make sure, your legacy's left, and you did a tremendous job with Indiana boxing. You are the all-time greatest Indiana boxing hall promoter. I'm going to give a shout-out to Boy Wonder, Russell Peltz. And what a great weekend was. And, we bring in Russell, and he takes Fred to St. Elmo's for dinner.
Can you imagine that? How many people do you think he ever took to St. Elmo's?
That might have been the only person. I like the best one when he goes, I'm not taking Carl King. He knew he was going to pay over the bill. You know what I'm saying? It's like he's going to say, Carl gets off the plane. First thing he says is, I'm hungry. I'm like, this is going to cost me a few bucks. But it was Carl King, his son's, his dad's, Don King's the greatest promoter to ever live. And he had Michael Dynamite Dokes. You remember Dynamite Dokes?
Oh, yeah.
He had Dokes.
Well, he was on the 76 national team.
Yeah, a great fighter. Yeah,
and, the amateurs. I remember him. George DeFabis was a big Dokes fan.
Yeah. And he was with Michael Spinks when they had a 76 Olympic team went over there and fought Russia, and Spinks got beat in Russia at that time. That was before the Olympic team. They just went over there for a dual meet, and Spinks got knocked down, and he was talking about how he lost and how he trained to get ready for him in the Olympics, and then he knocked him out. It was great stuff. Well, hey, man, Wyatt, thank you so much for today, man. We were having a blast.
No, thanks for coming in.
No problem. Anything last you want to say, Freddie?
No. If you could lend me $20 till I get a job.
Well, Fred, let's go get some lunch and we'll call it a day. Thank you so much.
Very good.
No problem. Thank you, Wyatt.